Hello and welcome. If you're here with me, if you jump in at any time today, please say hello in the chat box. Um, I love to see you here. And if you have any questions as I talk about today's topic, please feel free to ask. I really encourage engagement, community engagement. So today's topic is relinquishment trauma and EFT. So, this is a very tender topic to me. Oh, by the way, can you hear me? Let me know if there's any sound issue. As you can tell, I'm trying to improve the sound. Oh, hello. Hi, Amanda. Can you hear me okay? Yes. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, this topic is a very tender topic to me. Okay. Thank you, Arthur, Allison. Oh, nice to see you all here. I'm not an expert on this topic. I've not researched, studied it. It's more of a lived experience. I myself am an adopted person. So I was relinquished by my birth mother at birth. And 10 days later, I was adopted and raised by my adoptive parents. So, I didn't know anything about relinquishment trauma when I was young. And in this live, I don't really want to talk about my story. I wrote a lot about my whole story in my memoir, Healing Tree. But I want to focus on this key point here, which is the relinquishment trauma, which I didn't understand that I had at all. How it showed up for me was, and I also didn't know this or understand this when I was young, but I was very, very, very fearful, extremely anxious, very worried to the degree reaching like neuroses level of worry, constant, incessant thoughts and anxieties. That was, and then very, very insecure. That was just all that I knew about myself when I was younger. And of course, there can be elements from my childhood that influence that. But it was later. Hello, Claudia. Welcome. It was later when I was introduced to the book, The Primal Wound. So, most people in the adoption community know about this book. It's written by a woman named Nancy Verrier, or Verrier, I'm not exactly sure how you pronounce her last name. She is an adoptive mother, but also a therapist, a psychologist. And she talks about this, the primal wound. So this is another word for the trauma of relinquishment. And I didn't also enjoy reading that book when I started reading it. It was really, really triggering for me. And I felt like I was being put into a box, like an adoptee adoption box. And that wasn't comfortable either. So I don't like to be in boxes. So it was difficult to start to read about this and learn about this. But the one thing from that book that was really powerful in the first read was where she kind of described the primal wound like this. So I'm going to do my best to sort of summarize it, which is that we grow inside of our mother's wombs for 9 months. After 9 months, we're physically able to be independent. We're no longer physically reliant on the mother. So birth happens and we're now an independent being. We're a baby. However, for the next, and I can't remember exactly how long she said. I can't remember if it was 6 months, 9 months, a year, 18 months. It was some period of time. Even though we're physically independent, we are still energetically connected. We're very connected, and inside of that energetic boundary with the mother, the baby's psyche is still forming. So when there is a severing between the mother and the baby, and this happens in adoption. This can happen when there's an illness, even like on the mother's side or on the baby side, where there's a separation. That severing forms an energetic trauma of the psyche, really. So now the psyche is no longer forming in a normal, healthy way. There's an injury. There's an injury that happens. So I'm a normal person, but there's an injury that's invisible that happens. And this she calls the primal wound, or I want to call it here relinquishment trauma. Hello, Mary. Can benefit. Yes. Yes. So I invited, when I sent this out today, because a lot of people, like everyone there's many people who can relate to this. There's also many people who can't, who didn't experience anything like this, but you may feel some of what I'm talking about resonate for you. I'm Oh, the name of the book? Oh, my book. I think I'm answering Claudia here. My book. Oh, no, no. You're asking the book that I'm talking about. The Primal Wound. The Primal Wound. This is the name of the book. So I just listed all of the ways that that trauma sort of showed up for me in a young life. But when I read it at that moment, it was really eye opening. I really felt that is so true. Now, I was much older and I was already on my own healing journey. And I was doing a lot of mind, body, spirit, and energy work. So I was processing this wound already through doing energy healing, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later. But what I came to understand more is, so this is an invisible injury, right? There's not any physical problem. And so what actually became injured is related to the ego. So again, I'm not a professional. I'm completely sharing today from my own personal experience, what I've learned through my own internal exploration and through working with a lot of different students and a lot of different adoptees as well. So the ego, we're all, if we're born and we have a body, if we're human, we have a body, we have an ego. It's just part of the package. It's meant to be there. Its main job is to keep us alive, this ego, right? So it processes fear, doubt. It keeps us alive and therefore safe, right? It's very interested in keeping us safe. And that's why it sometimes shows up with a lot of like excess desire to control so that we can be safe, and also desire to be recognized, which means more like loved or cared for or attended to or approved of. This is all a recognition desire. These things to the ego keep us safe and alive. I see things. Okay, thank you, Claudia. Oh, yes. Okay, yes. Thank you for sharing, Mary. Yeah, this can be helpful in many ways. I know it can touch many different people. And I found that when I wrote Healing Tree. So that's why I wanted to also talk about it today. So I understand this wound to be a wound and a trauma of the ego. Actually, in the Primal Wound book, Nancy Verrier also talked about something called premature ego development, which I later, when I read the book, I read parts of the book again later, I also found very interesting, which means that this trauma occurs. There's a subconscious knowing of the baby that there's no one to protect me, or at least my main source of protection, which is my birth mother, is removed. And so then the ego comes online prematurely, like earlier than its natural healthy development. And again, non-professional. So if you know more about this than me, you are welcome to share in the chat box. I'm very open. I'm just telling you what resonated for me and how I understood it through all this inner work that I was doing. And I was very much examining my own ego. So the ego, I realized, came online early for me. So it's louder. It's more threatened, a stronger, louder threat to try to protect the baby, to try to protect me from a very, very early age. It's like overboard, overactive desire to be safe, an overactive feeling of threat. So that also caused me to feel easily hurt, easily unsafe. And again, I learned this as I was examining myself. So when you're in a constant, if those who experience relinquishment trauma will often feel in a constant state of feeling unsafe. I had one adoptee who said in a class once or something like his, again, I don't remember the science, like every single cell in his entire body feels unsafe. That's how he felt it. And I understand that feeling. I understand that feeling. So when you're in a constant state of feeling unsafe, then, and the ego keeps sending the message, we're not safe, because we didn't get the recognition, love, kind of energetic. So this is not just like an emotional need, like give me attention. This is like a physical need for human life to live and thrive and survive. So if we didn't receive it at a proper amount at the proper moment of life, now the ego's on overcharge. Not safe, not safe, not safe. And it's not just for like that time when you were a baby, but the ego forms a pattern, and it keeps repeating this, keeps saying this to us as we're living life. So as long as we feel not safe, then we're in a constant state of fight or flight or freeze or fawn. I'm not sure if you've heard about this one, fawn, but that's something that I was actually introduced to during my studying of EFT, my course. And as I was getting ready for this live, I was like, let me just double check and look up the exact meaning of fawn, because that's the least familiar one to me. And I looked it up, and I'm going to read to you what Google says about fawn. Let me just check these messages here. Hello, everyone. Oh, hello, Allison. Yes, welcome. Okay, you've heard of fawn. Symbiosis and safety are interrupted early. Okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing. So yes, what Google says about fawn is this. I can't help but read this. In the context of trauma responses, fawn refers to a behavioral strategy where an individual attempts to please or appease a perceived threat to avoid conflict or harm. It's a coping mechanism used to survive potentially dangerous situations by prioritizing the needs and approval of others over one's own. So now we're talking about this kind of false sense of threat that happens when we experience a relinquishment trauma, or an abandonment wound is another way to say this, at an early age. This can be not just birth, but also some of you may have experienced this in childhood related to a parent, and something that was a safety for you is removed. And so now we're in this constant state of threat. So the way this font, so it's not a real threat necessarily. The house isn't on fire. We're not being chased by a bear on the mountain, but it's a perceived sense of threat. And so Fawn continues to say, we try to appease this threat by people pleasing, seeking approval, lack of boundaries, And it can also contribute to codependent behaviors where individuals become overly reliant on others for validation and approval. Now, I'm not sure about you, but this is painfully true for me in my life. And that's why I said at the beginning, it's a really tender subject because it's triggering. And I meant to say this at the beginning. And I really want to invite you, like, if anything of what I'm saying is triggering for you, you don't need to grit your teeth and bear through it. You can just exit this at any time. I want you most of all to take care of yourself and give the love to yourself that you need. Because that's what we really need, those of us who have experienced these traumas. We need to be able to give this love to ourselves because it was lacking at a certain moment in our early development. And because of that lack, goes back to the ego's purpose, lacking the love, lacking the recognition. Now the ego feels, I have to work overtime to keep you safe. And I have to control everything to keep you safe. So some of what I just read is what shows up in our later years. Controlling issues, obsessive compulsive issues. Controlling also for me has shown up as worrying. I'm gonna perseverate on this. I'm gonna worry and I'm gonna obsess and analyze. And it's like I'm strangely trying to control the problem. All in attempt to keep myself safe. Okay, Amy saying it's painfully true for me too. Thank you for reading that definition. I know. I read that definition right before I entered this, well, maybe about half hour ago, and I was like, whoo, ooh, I felt that. So we have to see in the healing journey. The healing journey is about seeing where the wound is showing up for us. I'm talking about this a lot these days, but we have all these blind spots. Like we have these places where we don't even realize it's showing up for us. And I, frankly, am sort of interested and excited at this point of my journey for those things because I've done a lot of clearing work. I guess let me just back up for a moment and say, as I've lived my life, the way that I've seen this wound, the way that I'm most triggered and it's most like coming up and showing itself to me has been in my relationship with my birth mother because I reunited with her when I was 21. So I'm 48 in a couple days here. So it's a long journey of developing a relationship with her, which has been a beautiful journey, but not an easy one. Because in that relationship, I like alarms, bells, fluorescent lights. I don't know what I'm trying to say here. Like screaming, the wound would come up. It wasn't just a normal connection relationship. The wound was always there, jumping in my face in every interaction, even in my thoughts. I just could see myself not processing in a healthy way whenever I would even sometimes be thinking about her. So the wound showed up there for me and also showed up in my relationships with men, my romantic relationships. So long journey with that, but that's where the wound continuously showed itself. And currently I'm in a loving partnership also with another person who is adopted. So it's very interesting for both of us to have the opportunity to see where the wound comes flying up because there's just so many places where it's easy to feel triggered or the ego says, not safe, need to control. And this, is always going to create clashes or things that we need to work through in relationships. And we need to really work. It's not the kind of thing like, oh, it's going to go away. Or if it's a different kind of person. No, when it's rooted in a relinquishment trauma, an abandonment wound, it's something that we have to work on. I've had to work on. I continue to work on. So I like to share these things. I like to come on here and talk to you because this is like real time for me. But of course, I've come a long way so that I can actually articulate it. I've done so much practice for the last 25 years that if there's any insight or helpful tools or tips or wisdom to share, I want to be able to do that because we need to be able to look at the wound. So we need to know that, first of all, you're not alone. We're not alone. And we also need to know, hold on, I just want to see these messages. Hold on one second. Fawn and freeze, Claudia. Yes. So I was more familiar with freeze because I get freeze. Just freeze, shut down. I get that too. I think I have all fight, flight, freeze, fawn. I've experienced all of them. So that's why it's so interesting for me to hear about this fawn piece. Amy, does the birth mother experience a different kind of wound that exasperates the problem? So, thank you for that question, Amy. That's probably a topic for a different day, but I would say yes. In knowing my birth mother and in being in the adoption community, I can see the pain, the trauma that the birth mother goes through herself, which is it's different. It's a trauma related to something they can remember, a choice that they made, whether they were forced or whatever the reason, but it's more conscious, right? For the relinquished baby, this is an unconscious wound. That's why it's called primal. It's just it happened. There was a severing, there was this injury, and then the baby's growing up into adulthood and trying to have a normal, healthy life. And there's all these struggles that make life feel harder many times. So probably more on that another time, Amy, but thank you for asking. It's a long process, the feeling of trying to protect. Yes, Amanda, I know. I know. The healing process is a long process. So that's another thing that I'm here to say. We have to give ourselves space, grace, kindness, patience on this long journey. Forgiveness, love. First of all, we need that for our healing. We deserve that, and we don't need to wait for somebody else to give that to us. I want us to know that we all have our own power. We can empower ourselves to give it to ourselves. That is our right as a human being. I'm talking about a lot of things here. I hope you're following me and that it's helpful. I want to loop back to say in my journey, I couldn't even make headway on this. Okay, let me say this. I started to really begin making headway on this when I connected, when I met with, discovered, realized, whatever words we want to use here, myself, capital S, true self, my soul, whatever we want to call this, my essence. Once I started to connect with and discover that self, I could feel there is a self beyond the wound. Now, I didn't have words for this back when I first discovered this self. That was in my early 20s. Now I know I have an essence that is perfect in and of itself. It's not related to my ego and my successes and failures. It's not related to how people treat me, have called what I lived through. It's not related to any of that. That's more related to the ego self that is connected, right, to this body and this journey in this lifetime. But there is an essence, we can say the true self, the original self, like the essential life within, for lack of better words. Again, these things are hard to name, but It's only something that can be really felt. Once I started to feel that self, I could feel, oh, there's a self that's not wounded. And when I would connect with that self, I felt for the first time in my life, very really after years of being kind of in a state of torture from fear and even sometimes rage and like the whole gamut, shame, guilt. My point is, I started to feel peace, like true peace. Like that's the place where everything is okay. I'm okay. Nothing can hurt me, essentially. So, my discovery of that place and my continued journey to keep connecting there, to grow that space inside me, to keep aligning with it, to share it, to come back to it again and again and again, a million times, even though a million and one times I fell into the trap of my injured ego self that is amped up, right? Nervous system is jacked up. When I'm in that self, my nervous system is really jacked up. There's just a constant activation. That's how I experience relinquishment trauma. And then when I return to my essence self, there's an immediate peace. There's an immediate calming. So, why I decided to name this talk Relinquishment Trauma and EFT is because the practice of EFT, emotional freedom techniques, is a practice that helps us to calm the nervous system. I heard recently that it lowers cortisol by 24%, just the tapping. Let me read these things. Although, okay, Mary, I did not make a choice. My baby was here. Yes. So, okay, thank you, Mary. Again, I think that's probably a conversation for another time. I'm so sorry for that experience, but sometimes the birth mother, it wasn't a conscious choice, and there's a lot of painful aspects of the industry. I know I'm familiar with it from being exposed to the adoption community for the past, really just for the past 3 years. I've learned a lot. So there's a whole different kind of pain and trauma because of that. So I'm sorry for your pain. I want to say that. It's never easy. None of this is easy for any of us. But I'm here to let us know that we're not alone. And also, we have a wound. We have wounds, but we are not that wound. There's also something else that cannot be wounded. So the more I connect to that place, the more I also heal my relationship with myself and my relationship with my birth mother. Healing happens all around, and my relationship with my partner. Healing happens all around the more I heal through remembering that self. Although I wasn't adopted, I feel there's a mutual understanding between us. Yes, yes. Because of whatever very common people who experience trauma commonly, I think, are all experiencing the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So we understand each other, the lack of boundary, the trying to be perfect, the need to be good and please, or wanting to shut down and freeze and numb ourselves. There's so many things we can understand if we experience trauma. Does your partner also use this EFT or ESNT? He likes them both. He dabbles in them. I wouldn't say he's a consistent practitioner, but in using them, he feels the lowering of his own cortisol and relaxation of his nervous system for sure. Every time. We have wounds, but we are not our wounds. Yes. I'm not an adoptee, but I'm a mother and a daughter, and I've experienced trauma, so I can relate from that perspective. Right. So if we just see how trauma causes us to go in our nervous system to go into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, we all can start to understand each other. Yes, thank you. So EFT is a really useful tool to help us to start to lower the cortisol, relax the nervous system. And then once we get into that state, we can kind of start to face and address this wound, or more often, it's like the ripple effect of the wound, right? It's showing up in our beliefs about ourselves, our heavy emotions that we're kind of stuck in or drowning in, or we can't like get out from underneath them, or our incessant thoughts. So we need to calm the system so we can start addressing those things and facing them, because avoiding doesn't help our healing. We can always pause, as I said earlier, when we feel triggered, if we need space, we got to go at our own pace here. But when we become clear, I'm avoiding something, we can keep observing that we're avoiding until we're ready to face. And the healing happens in the facing. So EFT also can help us when we're ready, when our nervous system is more relaxed, to actually face some of these things, to speak some of them out, to verbalize it. And sometimes it's nonverbal. And I will be sharing in the near future tools that there's a lot of tools that can help us even when it's nonverbal. So a lot of what I'm talking about today, even for myself, it's nonverbal because I've done so much work on myself on what I can see. But there's still places that I see the wound shows up, the trigger happens, and I'm like, what is it? Where is it got me? Where is it controlling me? Where am I forgetting who I really am? Falling into that trap. Sometimes I can't see it with my conscious awareness. So I'm also working a lot on doing subconscious work. And some of that work can be the best work for me because it's things that I didn't know how to name that I'm starting to clear. Yes. Yes, Amy. It's very hopeful. So it's EFT is also, and just a healing journey is meant to empower us. We are not victims. We don't need to be victims of our wounds. We don't need to, okay. I know a lot of people don't like that word. So I can't take it back because it's alive, but I want to be careful with that. The word victim is more like for us, when we feel powerless, when we feel like, oh, that happened, so I have to be this way forever. Oh, because of this, then I'm never going to be able to be happy, to have peace. I'm never going to be able to let this go. That mindset is a very disempowering mindset for us. But there's always a way to learn how to live in harmony with ourselves, how to coexist with our wound harmoniously. I have it, but it's not me. It's like learning to coexist harmoniously with a roommate. We're sharing ourselves. We're sharing ourselves with this wound. But there's also another me. So EFT is very powerful for helping with these kind of traumas because we're moving the energy, we're unblocking the energy. So we're letting this emotion flow through us, and we're developing the strength and courage and the clarity to face it. And when we face it, we start to clear it. It's like shining the light of our awareness on it. It starts to clear like fog. I heard that from Eckhart Tolle. That's not my wisdom, that's his, but I love it. Shining the light on of our conscious awareness is like the sun on fog, and the fog will start to break up. Because this wound, even no matter how painful and how dense it is, it's also just a fog. It's not my essence. My essence in that analogy is more like the sun. You have so many helpful sound bites. I feel like you could do a book of healing tree quotes. Ooh, good idea. Thank you, Amy. So I feel like I could talk forever about this. I can see I'm at 35 minutes here. I know everyone has a lot to do. You may have to go. But before I wrap up, I wanted to do just one short round of EFT tapping simply on one sentence from today, which is, I have a wound, but I am not that wound. And now this could be because you are an adoptee, you have a relinquishment trauma, you are a birth mother, you have another kind of childhood trauma. I have a wound, I have a trauma, but I am not that wound. Just remembering that again as we tap. So if you're still with me here, please follow along, tapping on the side of your hand. Even though I have trauma, it's okay. It doesn't feel okay all the time, but I know that I'm not this trauma. Even though I have a wound, right here at this moment, I'm choosing to remember that I am not that wound. Even though I have a wound, it's okay. Right here and now, I'm remembering that I am so much more than my wound. And I'm ready to reconnect with that self again. Top of your head and breathe out. I have a wound. Back of your neck. I have a trauma. Top of your head. That's okay. Inside of your eyebrows. It doesn't always feel okay. Outside of your eyes. But it's okay. Under your eyes. It's okay when I remember I am not that wound. Underneath your nose. I am not my trauma. Underneath your lip. I have a wound, but I am not my wound. Underneath your collarbone. I am so much more than that. Center of your chest. There's a part of me that is always okay. Under your arms. It always has been, and it always will be. Side of your thumb. And when I can remember this, next finger, I am grateful. Next finger. So I'm taking this moment here and now, next finger, to take a deep breath in and to feel myself as I breathe out. Next finger. And inside my breath, I can feel the life that I am. Side of your hand, the essential life inside of me that can never be wounded. And before we finish, let's just say, so it's okay that I have a wound because I am not my wound. And now, hands down, close your eyes. Take a deep breath in. Feel that. Just take that in for a moment through the breath. And exhale. Good. I'm curious if any of you followed along with that tap, if you'd like to share. I'd love to hear your sharing. And I hope that this has been helpful for you. I really can just speak from my own experience. My experience is now a lifetime, but 25 years, which is more than half of my life, of exploring my own wound through my emotional healing journey. Allison, that was lovely. Thank you. Great. Amanda, I felt myself calm down. Oh, that's wonderful. Calming your nervous system. Arthur got me all teary. Oh, I'm so glad. When tears flow, that means something is releasing. There's a lot of, ways that we release when we do energy work. But when tears flow, something of your energy and deep in your heart could move. Maybe it was a letting go, or it could have been a remembering. So thank you for sharing. Allison, it's been helpful for sure. Great. Amy, very comforting. Thank you. Okay, sure. I know you all have to run. We're at 40 minutes. Today I could talk forever on this topic, and perhaps I will again. If you'd like to, once I post this, share in the comments about anything that like more specific about this that you would love to hear me talk about, I will try to work it in, because this community is very important to me, and this conversation is really important part of healing for all of us, I feel. So thank you so much. Bye-bye.